All right, guys and girls, welcome to another episode of Comics and Sweet Tea. Man, I'm really excited about this one, but we'll get into that in just a minute. Okay, so you guys are still treating this like Fight Club, so it's not like Fight Club. I want you to tell everybody about the channel. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, hopefully you don't have any enemies, but if you do, still tell them about the show. Then you might can watch it together and become friends. Tell your family, hey, trying to get trying to grow this thing. Really enjoying talking with all the creators, and I hope you guys are enjoying it too. I've got some really cool guys here to talk some shit with today, and they're going to lay some knowledge on you on an upcoming Kickstarter that you might have overlooked. I hope you didn't because it looks fucking awesome, and I can't wait for it. Uh, anyway, ring that bell, get the notifications. You know, have you watched Andor? You know that guy that's in the tower in the first episode, and I mean that's his only job is ringing that damn bell, and does it uh, in a way that I was drawn to it immediately, and I just thought about this. So ring that bell like that guy in that tower on Andor, like it's all you've got to do, you know, like your life depends on it. And hey, if you're watching, all the likes help. So like the show, leave a comment, jump in the chat. We had a really lively bunch last time, and you know, really enjoyed it. So you guys jump in there. These guys will be happy to answer your questions. The crazier, the better. We had some really off the wall stuff last time, and hey, it made things interesting. Which things are going to be interesting anyway with these two guys I got coming in here in just a minute. But anyway, without any further ado, I'm going to bring in the man, the myth, and the legend, Mark Bernal from Lesser Known Comics. And I've also got Jay Louder coming in here. He's got an upcoming Kickstarter. It's a horror show. The date coming November 8th. And we're going to talk all about that and talk about some other possible projects Mark's got up his sleeve and just have a good sit down. So, hey, you guys kick back, take your damn shoes off, run around the house naked. I don't give a shit at this point. Just watch the show and enjoy us. So, here we go, guys. It's really awesome to have you on today. Me and Mark have been trying to get a show together for a while. I'm glad we finally put something together. I've admired everything that you've been doing, brother, in the indie community and with your company. This, I mean, just growing leaps and bounds, and it's just, man, it's awesome what you're doing.
Thank,
It really is.
thanks, thanks so much, Jerry. And it's great to be on. It's great to be here with two awesome creators. I got your books right here.
Oh,
So
thanks,
I'll,
dude.
I'll go ahead and give a plug to End of Days because, yeah, anytime we get a chance to sit down with other people who are making indie comics, it is one of the hardest things to do. So anybody who makes, an indie comic, let alone, someone who's done two consecutive chapters like yourself, I can't wait to just, shoot the shit because it is a journey.
It is never a dull moment, Mark. It really is. Yeah, I've actually chapter 3 come out a while back. I'm actually working on a prequel with Matt Martin right now. He's doing the art on it, and we're hoping to launch that in January. We'll see how things go. We're probably a little over halfway through the process on it, so it's coming together well. And Matt is
Right on.
just, man, he's blowing it out of the water with the artwork.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. I wonder if I got three here somewhere in one of these unopened boxes. I got
I'm sure
there's
you
a lot
do,
of
man.
there's a
I'm
lot
sure
there's a
you
lot of
got
Kickstarter.
stacks galore. But Jay, we're not here to talk about me. Let's talk about your project, man. I want to hear about this thing and kind of the history. That's what I love most about doing this, sitting down and kind of finding out, where these things come from. Because most of them come from a special place. You might have, I mean, some creators, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I just come up with this thing last year," and then some you'll be like, they'll come at you, "Hey man, I have had this since grade school, and I've been just sitting back and waiting to throw this thing out there." So let's hear yours. Let's hear your story, Jay.
Sure. Yeah. That's a big mountain to try and climb, but
Hey,
yeah. So
let's get on the hiking boots and get after it, man. We're here for the journey.
sounds good. Yeah. So the project that I have coming out is called "It's a Horror Show." The date. So it's kind of the second installation of "It's a Horror Show" that I've made. "It's a Horror Show" it's kind of an anthology series of books. Like each comic is a self-contained story,
Okay.
kind of hearkening to the days of like your classic monster movies and classic kind of horror. I
Right.
like to think
Right.
back to those schlocky late night movie marathons and stuff like that are like hosted by like Alfred Hitchcock hosted one, and Elvira had her own, and so I
Right.
kind of
Right.
feel
I
like
remember that
in
one well.
yeah, and so in a way it feels like to me like that's just the stuff that I've always been into, and so "It's a Horror Show" is kind of a comic version of that, I guess, of
Okay.
these it's kind of campy horror. It's mostly comedy and whatnot. Um, the first book was all kind of just like this simple idea of, and I have it right here as well, which was a mini comic
Awesome.
that like the basic idea was like killer, is attacking these college kids in a cabin in the woods, as they do. It's gonna happen. College kids are
Right.
partying. They're just gonna do it.
Definitely. You got
They're
to have
drawn
a
to them.
serial killer on the loose anytime there's college kids partying. You just got
Yeah.
to.
And so the killer comes to these kids and is about to do what he does, and the college kids, in true kind of like Gen Z fashion, start nitpicking his costume choice and like how he shows up to murder them. And the killer kind of like, you just see him get kind of deflated, and it's a whole story about like
Right.
them critiquing horror tropes and whatnot. And and so like the "It's a Horror Show" as a series is based kind of at this idea that like taking these kind of well-trod horror tropes and whatnot, and then doing something where I twist it, and I want to just turn it a little bit, have a little bit
Right.
of fun with it, change it up a little bit, and make a twist that feels funny and is kind of like playful to the genre itself. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
I can't say this was a thing that like has been with me since grade school. Like this
Hey,
particular
that's
story.
cool, man. Everybody's got their own story, brother.
But I will say that monsters, and like especially the Universal monsters, like going back to grade school, which is kind of funny to do. I was into monsters so hard. But like
Right.
the movies were too scary for me at that age. So like my library had all these copies of like these hardbound books that were like the photo, and it would photos from the movies, and it would like tell the basic plot of the story, and I would check them out over and
Okay.
over and over again. It was like the classic Universal movies, and so those images just like stayed in my head for forever, of the Wolfman wandering through the woods, or whatever. And so come back to now me making comics, and the second iteration of "It's a Horror Show," the date is I'm making a werewolf story, and it's kind of like coming back to those images that I it's just so ingrained in me from checking these books out at the library in third grade. Yeah, but without like, I mean, I feel like I'm talking way too much about this stuff.
No, man.
but the-
Hey, this is all yours. This is your soapbox. You get on and you just preach to the mountains, man. Put it all out there. That's how people are going to learn this stuff. You got to lay it all out for them.
Yeah, that's fair. So the book that we're launching in November, the date, so the second, it's a horror show, is about a werewolf is our main character, and the idea kind of came from I don't know if what music you like and whatnot, but there's the band The Cramps. They have a music video for their song I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and in this music video the band so like Lux Interior and Poison Ivy are all like in this hot rod cruising down the desert, and the song, you know, I Was a Teenage Werewolf was playing, and I was like, man, it would be cool to take that idea and turn it into a story. And so I kind of like took that idea of like this hot rod in the desert, and I was just like, let's bring that werewolf in and let's make a punk rock werewolf. And from there, the story just kind of like kept evolving and changing from there, and it became what it is. Yeah.
Okay, man. And I got to tell you that it sounds like an outstanding idea. I love the anthology angle to it. And the one thing that grabbed me, I come across the art first. That's because that's what I gravitate to. That it always catches my eye first, and if the art grabs me, then I'm coming in for a closer look, you know. And then I got to reading about this thing and kind of scrolling through some of your stuff, and I was like, "Holy shit, man! I've got to check this out. I've got to contact this guy." And then I seen you were already hooked up with Mark. I'm like, hell yeah, we got to do a show. We got to talk about this thing. We got to push it. So let me ask you this, totally off topic, but I'll probably already know the answer, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Werewolf by Night by Marvel. What did you think about it? After
man,
you said you like the old classic monster movies and stuff like
totally.
that. Man, yeah, I fell in love with the thing. I didn't have high hopes for that at all. It was just, you know, I was like, oh, they're gonna butcher this, but man, they took it and they knocked it out of the fucking park. And I hope they do more of this. But what were your thoughts on it?
Totally do. I completely agree. It was kind of a sleeper. Like, I didn't hear that it was going to happen. I had no idea.
Out of nowhere.
It really did. I think the first time I even heard that it was going to be a thing, I was at New York Comic Con, whenever that was, beginning of October, and I think they just had like a little announcement, like, "Oh, Werewolf by Night releasing this date." And I was like, what? When the hell? And
they didn't push it at all, really.
Not really.
It's just, you know, I mean, it was just, I didn't know it was even out until after it already released on Disney Plus. I mean, I didn't see a whole lot on social media. I mean, there wasn't a big push for this thing. It just kind of blop, and there it was.
Yeah. But I super loved it. It caught that whole nostalgic vibe of the black and white, the fog, the foggy, stormy night, and these, you know, strangers coming to this. I was like, dude, this is everything I love about like classic horror. And yeah, I think that it was great. And then bringing in, you know, Man-Thing, giant size Man-Thing.
Oh god, Ted, like, Ted, man.
So cool.
Yeah.
That
was the biggest shock to me. Was I never in a million years thought they were actually going to bring Man-Thing into the Marvel.
No way. Yeah.
You know? And then all of a sudden, there he was in his big ugly wonder right there in front of us, and he goes by Ted. I mean, come on, you can't do it better than that.
Yeah.
And you know, you were talking about that. It had that old Kent too, but it didn't go overboard with it. It was just the right tone. you know.
Yeah, it really hit it. Like it still felt like a Marvel thing. Like it had that kind of Marvel sensibility
Right.
to it. But but at the same time, the way that they matched the tone of what with those movies and what they were kind of referencing, and then also just like the source material of the Werewolf by Night comics, I was like, yeah, I was blown away at how like spot
Exactly.
on they actually made that.
Oh yeah, it was, man. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he's the guy that directed it. He's known for scores. I mean, we've listened to his scores on movies and stuff for years, and they just let him have this thing and run with it. And I
Mhm.
mean, he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. He must have had a deep love for this project, because you can see the passion in it. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure he had a a lot of folks around him to kind of help guide him with certain things, being that it was his directorial debut. But I mean, my God, man, they need to do more of that.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree.
But yeah, we were talking. Okay, so you were at New York Comic Con, and I
Mhm.
know Mark was at Baltimore here recently. Man, y'all, I'm jealous. I'm not even going to lie. You guys are conning it up, and I have missed every single damn con this year, because every single damn one of them I've been at work, and it's just I get to see
Mm.
all the pictures, and I'm like, yeah, I want to be there. I'm hoping things will kind of rotate around with my schedule, so next year I can get out on the road with you guys, and we can just kick back, hang out, shoot the shit live and in person, and just I want to be out there and get that energy from everybody, and just get to know you guys. You know, that's why I love doing this show, and I love elevating indie any way I can. You know, and that's how I feel about it. But
Yeah, it was Dan Price from Bigfoot Knows Karate who kind of kicked my butt when I was in Houston at Houston Comic Palooza, and we had such a great
yeah,
time. Me and a bunch of other creators and him. We went out for tacos afterwards, and he was like, "This
right.
is what it's about. We could be doing this all the time." And he's kind of turned into one of my con buddies, and yeah, because you know you can only tell your friends and your family so much, but they don't really understand the ins
Right.
and outs of trying to make a book and what all goes into it and stuff like that. And then you talk to people and then you've known them for so long on social media, so when you catch them in
Yeah.
person, it's like you don't even skip a beat, you're just already hanging it. It's like you've been old
Right.
friends,
It's
and
it,
it was
it's like
so
you've known
cool.
each other for years.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, I
especially
can't wait to
when you
do that.
admire their work and stuff like that too, and you get to see the people. Adam Caswell, who did one of the Bigfoot Knows Karate variant covers, he was sitting there sketching, and I've always been a fan of him. I'm just like watching him work, I'm just like, this is
Yeah,
cool.
dude, I can sit there, even though I draw a lot too, but I can sit there and watch somebody else draw for hours. I never get tired of it. It's just it's hypnotic, is what it is.
Mhm.
It really is. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
It
as a writer,
totally is.
getting those pages back from an illustrator, like, and I had to tell Jade when we started work, because we're working on a project together right now, and I was like, hey, don't take my excitement for impatience. Like, I was like, because I was like, I don't care if it's just a doodle on like, because he had the rough
yeah,
storyboards and stuff like that. And I was like, show it to me, because it's just like, once you see
yeah,
it, right? Even if it's just a doodle,
right.
right? And you're just like, or thumbnails, you're just like, oh my gosh, it's happening. This is so cool, you
Hmm.
know.
And I
Yeah,
tell
when
you,
I
I'm
was
getting a
oh sorry.
taste. Go ahead, Jay. No, go ahead, bud.
When I was in New York, I got a chance to hang out with Klaus Janson a little bit, who did
Oh
inks
wow.
on like the Frank Miller Daredevil and Frank Miller Dark Knight,
Yeah.
and we were chatting for a while, and like, all these other big comic book guys have like lines around the block, and no one was in line for Klaus, and I was like, what the
Oh, wow.
fuck? And so like I had like a captive audience with him for like 20 minutes, and
That's awesome.
he drew Batman for me, and I was like, it was like I was hypnotized. I was like, this is all I want to remember. Just burn this into my mind of
Yeah.
like watching how he draws and stuff. So it was like this total fan moment of like, oh my god, like Klaus Janson is drawing fucking Batman right now.
That's incredible, man. It's been a while. I haven't been to a con since before COVID. And the last one I caught was Big Easy Con in New Orleans. And let's see, Andy Kubert was there, Clayman, um, David Finch, um, the late great Tim Sale. They had some. There was a slew of other artists, but that was the main ones I was going for. And I got to hang out with Adam Kubert for a good bit. Pretty much the whole 3 days I was there, I was kind of like in his back pocket. Every time I would get away from him, he'd just pop up and we'd get to talking again, and we were right back there. He probably wanted to hang me. He probably did, but I mean, but oh man, such a precious guy. David Finch, awesome, just super fantastic. Got to hang out with Clayman for a good bit. Awesome dude. Tim Sale, he was a little cranky at first. I think he wasn't feeling good, but man, I brought up Heroes, the NBC series from years ago, and he did all the art on that. And apparently he really enjoyed it because I mean, that was my way in. I brought up that, and I mean, we were there for like 2 hours talking Heroes with him and looking through all his art and stuff from the show. And I didn't know he was colorblind because in the show everything was colored. And he said, when I first brought it up, he said, "Yeah, I got some stuff here." And he said, "This is the original art from that." And he said, "But I'm gonna go ahead and tell you before you ask." He said, "It's not in color." He said, "I'm colorblind," and I told him that. So they said, "Oh, we'll handle it in post production," which they did. They went back and colored it digitally. But yeah, he had the original pieces from that show. You remember the guy? I can't remember the character's name, but he would draw it out, and his eyes would go all blank and stuff, and he'd be telling the future. He'd be seeing the future, and he'd be sketching it out. Well, that was the pieces that Tim did. And I mean, it was all in black and white. And he said, "Yeah, they took it." He said they didn't give a shit. He said that's fine. It doesn't matter. We'll we'll fix it. But I mean, he was just, oh man. And then when I got the news a couple weeks ago that he had passed, that just, man, it's crazy. We've lost too many greats here lately. Me and Dan were actually
just this
talking
year
about this
alone.
Yeah, a pile of 'em, man. We've lost. Let's see, we lost Neil Adams, we lost Tim Sale. I know
George
I'm forgetting a
Perez.
couple. Yes, I forgot George Perez. How could I forget George?
And then right before New York, we lost Kim Jong Gi.
Yes. That. Oh man. Yeah. And me and Dan were talking about that. He did a live that morning, and right after that live, we found out Kim Jong Gi had passed, and we were like, "Holy shit, man! We were just talking about this, And then, I mean, Master Kim was, I mean, he wasn't an old guy, and he seemed like he was in really good health, really good shape, and he was just took from us way too soon.
Yeah,
he was just brilliant, man. A brilliant artist. You are too quiet back there, Mark.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I got to do 2 cons, and well, I've done more than 2, but the 2 main ones. I was there helping table with Digital Lizards of Doom, and it was kind of crazy. It was the first time hanging out with Gabe Valentine from Digital Lizards of Doom, and he's kind of a crazy guy, goes till all hours of the night. And first weekend hanging out with him, and I wake up one morning, and it's like second day of the con, and he's not in the room, and there's like 20 missed calls from him. And I was like,
Oh wow.
did he get in jail? Like, what happened, right? And what had happened was
Right.
we had stayed at the same hotel as Frank Miller, and
Oh
all these
wow.
calls were from when he was in the bar, and he was sitting and chatting with Frank
Right into
Miller,
Frank.
and he's just texting, trying to call, be like, "You got to get down here." And I slept through all of it.
Oh
I
my
was just like,
Oh wow.
Oh
you know.
I
no.
would have been sick, dude. God. Frank is
But
Frank's the one
apparently,
guy. Yeah.
apparently, just super great and super welcoming, because Gabe's stuff is nothing like Frank Miller's. Gabe's stuff is high fantasy, vibrant colors, and
Right.
not gritty at all. But he's he's a big fan of everything that Frank Miller does, like most of us, and
Oh God, yeah.
so he was just kind of taken back that not only would spend time talking to him, but that he would spend time talking to him about his his dumb fantasy comic Digital Lizards of Doom that just
Right.
sounds like something that not nothing that Frank would be interested in, and so he was
They were just
and
chilling. That's awesome.
just chilling. Yeah. So Baltimore, I actually got to only briefly speak to Ed Piskor, who did he does cartoonist kayfabe, and he's got he did the X-Men
Red
grand
Room.
design.
Oh yeah.
And so I got the little art
Oh,
print
wow.
from him. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And but he's the
Gorgeous.
reason that I went from reading to actually being like, oh, let's make a comic. Because when I saw X-Men Grand Design
Right.
and saw how he, did such a good job, talking about the whole X-Men universe, that I was just like, this is what I want to do. I want to make a universe that's cool like this, and that, and
Right.
the really cool part about it is at the end of X-Men Grand Design, you can see his fan art he did as a kid,
Yeah.
and it looks, you can see the style. Like he had a style as a kid, and he stuck with it, because when you look at it, like, no one's ever drawn X-Men that looks like that. It looks,
Yeah.
it's got such a punk rock underground vibe to it. It's just like
Mhm.
Right.
this is blending of everything that I've ever loved in life.
Yeah. So I remember, what has it been? Is it 2 years since you started Lesser Known, Mark, or has it been a little longer than that now?
It's 2 years in this month. So
Okay. Yeah. I knew it had been
November,
right around 2 years.
yeah, November 2020, I started just, blindly in the dark, started working with a couple of artists, and I had planned on picking from a handful of concept artists to be like, okay, this is the person who's going to make a comic book with me. And
Right.
I ran into so many cool illustrators that I said, okay, well, maybe we'll make a couple. Maybe we'll make a couple of comic books, so I started working with a few of them simultaneously. Then as we posted
Yeah.
online, like, not only was it getting followers, but people were coming to us and saying, hey, can you help me make a comic? Can we publish that under you guys? And I didn't know how much hard work it was going to be, so I was like, sure, like, why not?
Yeah.
And still to this day, I think I'm kind of reeling from taking too much stuff in at the beginning,
Right.
and some of it worked out really well. Like Digital Lizards of Doom just got picked up by a bigger publisher. We got other people who, have gone on, they're doing some pretty amazing things. Some folks from bigger publishers who are coming in and starting to do work with us. But I think my favorite type of project is, exactly the kind that Jade had, where he's got this awesome book,
Right.
and then really all he needs is the megaphone that Lesser Known
Gotcha.
Comics has built, and it's been a cool experience because I mean, Jade, as you've probably noticed by now, is super easygoing guy, super talented.
Oh,
No ego, easy fucking dude to work with. And
right.
And then I was actually in Seattle, I think like 3 months ago, and he had posted that he had printed up the first It's a Horror Show comic, and he had sent it to a couple comic shops, and there was one in Seattle that actually had a few copies. So
Oh, wow.
I actually bought my first issue of It's a Horror Show
Oh, wow.
from this like little underground like punk scene shop in Seattle. And I like called him up and I was like, I got your comic today,
That's really cool. That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was like a week. It was like a week after I was there too, which was kind of funny that kind of lined up that way. But yeah,
it's been great, and this will be during the summer. This summer, I thought we were going to slow down. We had the Digital Lizards of Doom book and the Tank McGregor book that came out kind of right after each other. And those were great. Those were great campaigns. I was like seriously burnt out. And then Doug Knight, who works with us, he's actually a legally blind artist. He can't see more than 6 feet in front of him. Yeah. He was like, you know what? I can't wait that long, so I'm gonna release my book, like in July. And I was like, okay. And it was on the anniversary of when he got cleared from childhood cancer. He had childhood cancer that affected his vision.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, well, I can't argue with that. Okay, we'll do the Kickstarter. Another guy, David Lujan, awesome vampire book. He showed up and he was like, I got a book now, and I want to have this out in September. And then Chris Wigan from Tights. I was surprised because he's out there crushing it on his own. He said, "Oh, I want to join the lesser known team." I was like, okay, so now that's 3 books. I had my book in the hopper for Either Them or Us. That's the one that Kickstarter will end on Sunday. So it ends on Sunday, and then Jade's launches on Tuesday. So
you are a busy man, dude.
Just when I said no more, then it's like, but no more except for these 5 more Kickstarters that we're doing in half a year.
Except for these next 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, dude.
But
That
going into
says
2020,
something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great.
Good to be busy.
Yeah, it's good to be busy, and especially working with people that give you energy. Because that's one of the things that I tell people is most important in this is, I talk to a lot of writers who are looking for illustrators, or people who are just looking for partners and collaborators. And, I say the most important thing you can do is, 1, find people who are plugged into the scene, right? They know other indie creators so that they, have a network of people that support them. And then, people who, when you talk to them on the phone, you get off the phone with more energy than you started that phone call with, right? You're just like, I could talk to Jade for hours, right? We have to like, after an hour and a half, we're like, okay, but seriously, phone calls got to end, okay, versus people,
gotta go, buddy.
Yeah. I've worked with some very talented people where you're just like, I would chew through my arm to get off this phone call, just,
damn,
it's, some people, it's a matter of, folks who, understand, putting people first, understand that anytime you chart a path from A to B, you will not land at B. You're going to end at X, Y, or Z.
Never.
Yeah. And being able to say, hey, like, all right, we're here now. Like, what are we going to do with this? Like if we got better than we thought, it's not time to just pat ourselves on the back. It's time to say, okay, what are we going to do with this? And if we screwed it up, like, anyone can get knocked down. It takes, character for people to get up and say, what, we're just gonna move on and do this together.
Exactly. it's like you were talking. It's good to have that support group, man. Well, I've got several guys that I kind of like. Well, I'm part of Savage Sandbox now, so I got all those guys. But yeah, Dan
Awesome.
was one of the first guys that kind of reached out to me, and Dan Price, that dude, he's super awesome, man. Well, you've met him in person. I've never met Dan in person. I mean, we talked on the phone several times. We video chatted. I feel like I grew up with the dude. I mean, really, he's just one of those people that you want in your corner, man. I can be having the worst day, and I can talk to Dan, and I get off the phone, and I instantly feel like $1 million. He's just that guy. You know, and you've got to have that in your corner because. And Jade, I'm sure you know this. You creating the book, you feel like you're on an island sometimes. You feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere, dude, and you've got nothing or nobody. And it's nice to have, somebody well, you got Mark in your corner now, so you got him to reach out to. And, but you got to have that. After my last book, I kind of stepped back from social media for a little bit. I I don't know what it was. I felt burnout, man. I really did. And I talked to my family. I talked to several of my Instagram friends and some of the guys in Savage Sandbox. And hey, they pulled me through it. I was really close to just totally burning out. I just got in this funk and I don't know where it come from, but I'm glad it's gone, you know. And I don't even know where I'm going with this, but we got off into it. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
back to
and
support groups. Yeah, you gotta
yeah,
have them.
and you need different kind of people, right? Because
Right.
Gabe Valentine, Digital Illustrations of Doom, he's the cheer you up guy. Like I call
Yeah.
him like having a bad day, and he'll tell me how great I am, and then
Yeah.
people like Doug Knight, he'll listen to my problems and he'll say, all right, cool. Well, that sounds tough, and your only problem is
Yeah.
your attitude, Mark. So, once you fix that, you're going to be fine. Because
Exactly. Yeah.
I call him the nicest asshole you'll ever meet. Because what he'll do is he's not going to sugarcoat it.
No,
Um,
you've got to
yeah,
have that guy though to put
yeah,
things in perspective for you.
yeah. Yeah, because he was just like, oh, you're just gonna limp around all day and just feel sorry for
Yeah.
yourself. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
Wow. Yeah. I've got a few guys like that too. Like, hey, what? Really? You've got 3 books out there. Quit being such a bitch and suck it up,
Yeah, he cracked me up because him being blind, he's got 2 kids about the same age as me. And I talked about how
Wow.
difficult it is, to have kids and do all this. And he's like, yeah, well, at least you can see, and your kids don't move your furniture around on you. And I was like, oh,
Oh
okay.
wow. Hell yeah. I've got to meet this guy.
Yeah,
Wow.
great dude.
That's awesome. So Jay, let me ask you this. You were talking about it's a horror show, the date being an anthology. How many are you just doing a graphic novel, or are you going to do like several floppies? I mean, where are you going with this book? Do you
Yeah.
have a set amount that you're going to tell your story out in, or
We'll kind of see for now. Right now, it's a lot of
I
TBD.
got
I'm not sure.
you. Okay,
The date is the story itself. I think is 24 pages, and so it's just
gotcha.
the singular story. And this one, I have intentions of doing some follow-ups and stuff like that, time permitting, and all that kind of great stuff, life and
All
whatnot
right,
getting in the way.
definitely.
But I have this idea. So in the date, our werewolf character takes this kind of damsel in distress that he meets to this rock show, and where he is performing with his band, which are a band of other monsters who are all similar to werewolves. The band's called the Men Possessed. And so you've got the Wendigo is the drummer, Mr. Hyde, as in like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, is the bass player, and then you just have a regular dude named Chad playing guitar.
Okay.
And so I have this idea that I want to take this band and I want to do something with them. I want to take them on the road or something like that, and I want to do some more stories with them because they're like a hell of a lot of fun to draw. And I think there's some fun stories, just kind of like thinking back to like those classic Saturday morning cartoons of like where every superhero team just happened to also be in a band inexplicably. And so they would like save the world or solve mysteries. And then like the end of the episode would always be them like playing music. And I just kind of want to like take that idea and throw it at this kind of monster band and see what happens. And so I think that anything after this book is going to be kind of like probably following this band along a little bit. But again, I want to do everything as like everything will be a one-off self-contained story. So maybe that one would be a little bit longer. Maybe it would be several issues. I'm not sure yet.
I completely get that. It's an awesome idea. It really is. I can't wait.
It's been really cool to see like because you get followers that follow you for a long time, and they like your stuff and whatever. And then once Jade started posting some of the stuff and tagging, lesser known account as a collaborator, just seeing a new group of people who maybe didn't comment on all our posts, like start because he did that minor threat homage thing, and like so all of a sudden like people who were kind of quiet before are like, oh my god, this is it's a good reassurance.
You found their flavor.
Like, okay, and it's cool like because there's something for everybody in the catalog, but it's always fun to find, okay, we found something that speaks to a section, these folks who maybe like our art, but now we found what spoke to them,
Right.
It's been cool too, because when I post stuff on Instagram, the algorithm and everything like that, like kind of contains what I'm like who in my followers and whatnot sees it and how far it spreads out. But then being able to partner with Lesser Known, I'm getting in like these audiences and these people, are coming and checking out my stuff. And it's I mean, like Mark kind of used the analogy of like the megaphone, and that's been pretty awesome to be able to help with and to see the power of that, and like getting all these new folks checking my stuff out or just being stoked about what I'm doing. And then kind of like starting to bring in more of my own influences in terms of like music and monsters and all this stuff. And then where like all those intersections collide, then like all these fans of those things like start coming together and sharing what I'm doing and whatnot. Like I think there was like a punk rock blog shared one of my like photos, and I was just like, this is so it's so weird
that's really cool
that it happened. But it's like, it's cool. It's like they have nothing really to do with comics, but they're super into punk rock. And so like bringing in these different influences that maybe don't fit into comics but like do really is cool to see other fan groups take those ideas and take that stuff. And I'm excited to see where these characters could potentially go and the fan bases that could get aligned or whatnot from them.
I got you. Yeah, man. That's the awesome thing about indie. Anything's possible. Marvel and DC and not really Image, but Marvel and DC are kind of trapped in a box. Hey, Indie's the fucking Wild West, man. I mean, there are no limits. If you got an imagination and you're a good writer, it's wide open. And and you never know what's going to touch somebody. Just like you said the punk band kind of latched onto this. You just don't know what's going to grab somebody. I mean, comics is not going anywhere. People, they want to say, "Oh, comics is dead." That's horse shit. The media, the medium itself is far from dead. It's just all the stale ass shit that the big boys are pumping out that's kind of killing everything.
Mhm.
And you get on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and you look through there, and you start seeing stuff like your book or some of the other stuff that Mark's been putting out, or In the Days, or Crit, or Bigfoot Knows Karate. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that, there's a lot of noise, and I'll leave it at that. But then you got books like all the stuff that we're cranking out, and I mean, there's some really rich stories there, and somebody's going to grab onto that. You just, you got to find your audience, or your audience
Mhm.
has to find you. I mean, either or, but it'll happen. You just, when I put my first book out, I was scared to death, man. And I just threw it out there on a wing and a prayer. And, it just, when it funded, man, I was floating on cloud nine. I mean, you have no idea. I never in a million years would have thought this thing would have funded ever. I was like, well, I'm gonna try it out, and I put it out there, and it happened. But it's 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 awesome to be able to tell a story you want to tell, and to be able to put it in people's hands. I've
Mhm.
told people I could care less if I sell 100 copies or 1 million copies. I want to find that audience, the ones that care about it, that they live and die by this thing. They're there for you. That's what matters. Being able to get your story told, and them actually taking time out of their day. It still blows my mind that there's people halfway across the world that are sitting down right now, opening my book and reading it. That just blows my mind. Just a little old boy from Mississippi put out a comic, and there's somebody in Germany reading it right now. There's somebody in Ireland reading it right now. It's just, it amazes me. It really does. And you got Mark in your corner, so you're gonna have people all over the world reading your book, man. So just get ready for
Totally.
that.
Yeah,
It's
it's. Oh, sorry. Go for it, Mark.
Oh, I was just gonna say that yeah, seeing I think we're one of, Lesser Known Comics is one of a few people that are doing, like what Savage Sandbox is doing. Savage Sandbox, at least I see them like more as like an art collective, than like a specific, company in the way that like we form, but still the same end, right? They provide this
Right.
megaphone, they provide this camaraderie. Like the cool thing with seeing them set up at Baltimore Comic Con is, they had like a row, and
Yeah.
you had Crit, um, you had E4 Comics there, you had Homebrew,
Right.
and it was just, and then Dennis there with Celestial Knight,
Yeah.
just like,
Hmm.
and it was just like this little tribe that's like
Yeah.
adjacent to my little tribe that like we're already buddies, and
Right.
I want to get to a point where there's a coalition of indie publishers, because I get so many submissions and I wish we could publish everything, but
Right.
we're only 2 years old. But I could say, hey, I can't get your book out, but these guys can, or these folks can over
Right.
here. Because at the end of the day, it just, we just want the stories to get told and the stories to get made. Because
Exactly.
you're absolutely right about indie comics. The indie comics are the few stories out there now where something completely unknown, and I turn this page and I'm just like, what? You know, my wife's like, keep it
Yeah.
down. I'm like, you won't believe what's happening in this book. You know.
Right. It's
Totally.
insane, man. I mean, it really is. And you know, you still got this group of people out here that want to act like this thing's a competition. We're only stronger together, you know. And I from the guys in the community that I deal with day in and day out, you're not seeing that whole competition thing much anymore. I mean, we're all kind of coming together with this thing, and I just hope that continues to grow. You know, because I see great things coming out of this. I really do. And I mean, I've met some outstanding individuals through all of this, and you know, it's just all been a big blessing to me. You know, to be able to, because if I'd have never took this leap, I'd have never met all these fantastic people, like-minded people. You know, that just jumped out there with a dream. You know, that's all any of us are at the end of the day. We've got a dream and we're not scared to go after it. We're going after it right now, you know. And you know, I just want to take a minute, and I do this often. You know, there's people out there that might watch this. Hey, these guys, they had a dream. I had a dream. You know, if you want to get your thing out there, it you all you got to do is work for it. Nobody's going to give it to you. Just put the work in and don't be afraid to put it out there. You know, if it's good, I promise you, you're going to find your audience. You just can't be scared to put your stuff out there. Somebody's going to lock on to it, and somebody's going, you know, they're going to take it and run with it. That's how all of us got started in this thing. We put our fears aside and just took the leap. You know, so if you're sitting on the fence, hey, fuck that. Take the leap. So
Yeah, you just gotta keep going. Yeah, you know, there's so many things. You know, whether or not, you know, I actually, um, I ran into a buddy on that trip to Seattle, and he works at a comic shop. He's trying to get in the indie, you know, comic scene, and he said, "Oh, thanks, Mark, for that coloring job you got me, that colorist job." And I was like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And
yeah,
I had I had he told me, "Oh yeah, I did coloring for this book," and all I remember was, you know, he's always been a good guy. He's always showed up and, like, you know, been part of
right.
the, you know, the indie community. And then somebody had asked me in passing, you know, "Hey, do you know any good colorists? I'm looking for a colorist." And I didn't even remember recommending him. He's a super confident colorist, and I was like, and then he's like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, like that actually panned out." And I was like, and it's 90% just showing up. You know, I tell people who come to
right.
the cons, somebody handed me like just their stapled on piece of like compute, you know, computer printed out, you know, like black and white manga, and they were there at the con and they were passing them out, and I was like, just keep doing this, like, because there's so many people
Right.
who come and they'll say, "I have an idea for a comic," or, "I've been thinking about doing it," but like, just taking that extra step of printing it out, stapling it,
Right.
showing up to a convention, like, you are 1,000 miles ahead of everybody else who was just sitting on the fence waiting for
Exactly.
permission. You know, like, there's nothing, you
Right.
know, and I straight up traded them. I was like, "You gave me a comic, I'm gonna give you a comic," you know, like, because
Right.
like, you know, I was, there was some good stuff in there too. I got I got a couple printed out like little zine comics that, you know, people printed on their home computer, and I was like,
Yeah.
there's some real freaking talent in here.
I'm
Yeah,
telling you,
I think it's
it's
so. I'm sorry.
insane. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jay.
It's so interesting that the conversation, because it like it really bleeds into kind of like just how Mark and I even end up working with each other in the first place. Was so I was at Free Comic Book Day, like in May, I think is what it is. And so I'm up in Montana, and so for me to get to a comic book shop where I'm at, it's a 3-hour drive.
Oh
So
wow.
I was at
Holy
a comic
shit.
book shop, yeah, and it's a commitment. So I was at this comic book shop for Comic Book Day, and they had some local creators there, and I met this guy named Tony Grigori, who does stuff for IDW. He did this book called The Worst Dudes, which I think came out in Dark Horse. But I was chatting with him, and I was showing him my comic and stuff like that, and we were talking, and I was like, do you have any advice? And he's like, man, just keep making the books that you want to make. He's like, don't let people tell you what to make. You make the book that you want to make, and you put it out there. And
Absolutely.
so, like, I started sharing more of the stuff I was doing. I was just like, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. And then, like, literally 3 days later, I don't know if it was me who followed Lesser Known Comics first, or Lesser Known Comics who followed me, but somehow we linked up, and then Mark and I started talking 3 days after this conversation about just, man, put your stuff out there, get it out there. And I was like, holy shit, dude, if you do, the universe rewards you, and you get to meet these cool people. And then it's just there are tons of people who want to work with you and to make this stuff. And it's just you put it out there, and you will find those people. And I'm super stoked that I found Lesser Known Comics, and that we're working together. And it's just, it's all about that idea of, I mean, it's scary to put stuff out on your own, and be vulnerable,
definitely,
and whatnot. But I think that kind of what
if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Oh, totally. But when you take that leap, I think more often than not, the universe rewards you for that kind of courage. I really think that.
Yeah, and you can't, and not getting bent out of shape about the setbacks, and the best example of that is Tank McGregor. So Ray made this kick-ass graphic novel. It's just one of the most beautiful things, and he made it. He went on Kickstarter. It did not fund.
Oh, wow.
He was like, fuck it, I'm going to print it anyway. He started showing up to local comic shops and trying to put them on consignment at local comic shops. He reached out to our submission page, and because I get buried in submissions, I didn't even see it for 3 months, and then he followed up with another email directly to me, being like, hey, I put this submission in your inbox. I hadn't heard anything or whatever. And, I was like, oh, wow, this is really good. And then I hear that backstory, and I was like, this dude is super talented and does not give shits about setbacks. He's going through it, so it's a no-brainer, right? Do you want a kick-ass comic by somebody who doesn't quit? Yeah, I'll take that.
Definitely. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. How many books? I was just sitting here trying to think. How many books have you helped put out this year, Mark?
This year, so it's 6, 7, 8, 8 floppies and 2 graphic novels.
Oh, wow, that's a lot, man.
So I think right now it's a lot, and my wife is a very patient person, because she gave me permission 2 years ago to make a comic. She said, you can make a comic book,
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in this office. We share an office space, here at the house, and it's just overrun with comic books, and you see her take that deep breath, and she's like, there's worse things that my husband could be into.
Exactly. I mean, there's comics. Yeah. He could
we
be a drug dealer, but he's doing comics.
Yeah. We got drinks with the variant artist for either them or us. We were up in, it was me, my wife, and him getting some beers in New York, and he says to her, he's like, oh, this must be so cool. Your husband's got this comic thing, and he's making all these comic books, and he's working with all these illustrators. This must be so great. And she was like, meh, yeah.
Wow.
I wish there was less boxes at my house, but she's good people, she's she's the one that keeps me grounded, because you can't, you can't drink your own Kool-Aid, right? You gotta, you know,
Right.
when you lead a group as massive as lesser known comics, because right now there's 20 plus, you know, creators, writers,
Wow.
you know, illustrators that are working with us. And I have to, you know, many times be the one with the smiling face and being like, yep, you know, we're gonna do this, right? And then you can't drink your own Kool-Aid. You need somebody who's like, hey, you know, you're looking burnt out, you're looking stressed out, you know,
Yeah.
you like, you know, like bring you back to earth and have you evaluate, you know, your life priorities. Cause, you know, I think one of the missteps with starting lesser known comics is I started it thinking like, oh, I need to form a business, you know, and I started running it
Yeah.
like a business from the beginning. And and it was successful, but I wasn't having any fun. And
Right.
this guy who's doing a book with us, you know, later next year, I heard him on an interview, and someone said, "Oh, are you going to make comics for a living?" He said, "Well, I'm going to learn how to make comics in a way that makes me happy, and then I'm going to figure out how to put a
Right.
business model around that." And I was like, "That's the
Exactly.
wisest advice out there," you know. And
Yeah.
I'm really trying to shift to that because you know, at the end of the day too, you know, when you're happy and you're working with people that make you happy, then, you know, like the business part comes easy. You know, late hours
Exactly.
don't feel like late hours, you know.
Right. And I mean, it's easy to get bogged down in all of it. You know, like I never in a million years when I sat down and started my book, you know, I didn't know I was going to have to do marketing, and I didn't know I was going to. I had I sat down and I Googled this and I Googled that and I watched a shitload of YouTube videos and I studied up, you know. Had never done digital work. So I studied up on Clip Studio and I studied up on Photoshop and you know, I finally went with Clip Studio. So then I had to take 6 months and learn how to do that. And it's just been it was a lot of baby steps to get where I'm at now, and a lot of listening and a lot of writing and just sitting back and kind of taking it in and just being a sponge, you know. And I I almost let it get a hold of me and kind of burn me out on all that, you know, because I mean it was just well, you guys know it's a lot of work. People that don't think that a Kickstarter's work, hey, go out and try it. You know, start a book from scratch. I mean, it's not an easy thing. You sit down and you put all this together and you put your heart and soul into it, and then you know you got to do the marketing for that, and then you gotta build your campaign. And if you don't do that right, well, guess what? It's not going to fund, and your book's not going to do anything. It's just it's 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 easy to get bogged down in. You know, it really is sometimes. And once you've come through the process, you know, you learn a lot, and it gets you you learn from your mistakes, and the next one's a whole lot easier. You know, because you can copy and paste on certain things after you've got your thing built, and but you know, you constantly you're having to swap things up, and it just you know it's work. Everything
Mm.
about it is work, and you gotta find that balance, like you were just talking about, Mark. You got if it ceases to be fun, what's the point? You know, that's where I was at a while back. I was like, my God, this used to be fun. What the fuck happened, so to speak? And I had to get back to that place. I had to just kind of reset, you know, and because at the beginning of this, I wanted to tell a story. I wanted to be an artist. I didn't want to be a colorist, but then I here of course I'm coloring my own work, but you know, you get to a point, especially when you're a control freak like I am, you're like, I'm not going to put anybody in that position where they got to deal with me. you know. And I'm like, I've got to color this thing because anybody else, they'd be they'd be put a bullet in me because I'd be like, what the fuck is that? That's not the idea, you know. That's not the color I wanted. I said blue. Well, it's periwinkle blue. I don't want periwinkle blue, you know. I wouldn't put anybody through that. So hey, I'm coloring my book. So there.
Yeah, I leaned into the Marvel method as necessity because I
Right.
found that I had too many projects going on that I couldn't micromanage them, um, and was lucky to surround myself with with great visual storytellers. I think
Yeah.
well, on the project I'm working with Jade, he actually got a formal script, but for other folks, like Kieran who does Death Wish with me, he just gets like a string of incoherent text messages, that's the script, and I didn't know Jade that well, so I didn't want to put him through that yet, but that's probably what the
Right.
next iterations would look like. But yeah, you gotta decide what things you want to have control over and what things that you want to let go
Right.
of. And then trust folks, and work with people that because Franco on Either Them or Us, he changed the last 2 pages of the story, and I found out when I got the
Oh,
pencils
wow.
back, and he was like, I
Holy
changed
shit.
it, but I had already done 4 books with him, and he was like, you're gonna
Right.
love the ending now, and I was like, yeah,
So
I fucking love
you
it.
guys
Okay,
had that
yeah.
trust established. I got you.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, and working with people because even Jade on the first page of the project we're working on together, he said, yeah, the dialogue needs punching up, like you miss them, he's like, I'm going to draw you something, and that dialogue better meet what I'm drawing, and I was like, yeah, you're right, okay, yeah.
It seems like you got a really good process worked out with you guys, though. You've talked to them enough where you know how to interact with each one of them, how they're going to respond to it, and that's awesome. You know, just
Yeah,
like
and
you
I
were
think
talking about, you could throw the incoherent stuff at one of them, but he automatically knows exactly. You've developed that shorthand, so to speak.
yeah, and I think it's finding the difference between you know um, playing to somebody's strengths versus spoon feeding somebody. You know,
Right. Right.
um, because the worst thing that an illustrator, I'm saying this as a writer, the worst thing an illustrator can tell you is, I will draw exactly what you tell me, and it's like,
Yeah, you don't want that.
I want somebody who's gonna be like, hey, this could
Push the
be
boundary.
so much
Yeah,
cooler if we did this. um,
exactly.
but then also respect when you say, hey, I need it to be this certain way or whatever, but
Hmm.
yeah, I've been lucky. The personalities range so wildly, you know, um, and because we got you know quiet creators and we got loud bombastic creators, and people who the styles vary, but then you find out that for somebody like Franco, I don't need to tell him what an action scene looks like. I don't need to describe punch by punch. Like, all I just need to tell him is like, this person's gonna get effed up in this scene, and he's got it, and same thing
Yeah.
with Andrea with psychedelic stuff. I don't need to tell him if someone sees something psychedelic what it's gonna look like. He's like, I got it. I've taken enough mushrooms to know.
Wow, that's awesome. So you said you were going to do this book, and then you're going to take a break for the rest of the year. Um, January, you're kicking it right back off. You've already got some things in the can ready to go, Mark.
Yeah,
More projects.
yeah. So one thing I didn't realize about, bringing 6 new books on, at the end of the year, is that all those books are going to have sequels. And I was like, oh man. So
Oh
now I'm looking
wow.
at 2023, and I was like, Oh
Yeah.
gosh. And then David has 2 books, so and then, with Jade, he's working on a book with me. And then also
Right.
if he decides he does another It's a Horror Show by the end of 2023, so we started looking at the calendar. So we actually have a series of creator meetings, that we get scheduled. Because right now,
Okay.
when we schedule releases, it's strictly on the dibs system, like people call dibs on the month,
Right.
and then they're like, yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I think that's and then we're also learning from like a process standpoint. As many creators know, the illustration is what always takes the longest, at least that's popular belief, but what I'm
Yeah.
also finding is that final design and that final like going through the print proof, and it's not just the
Oh
actual
God. Yeah.
comic,
Yeah.
but the actual like, the stickers, the postcards, the bookmarks, all these extra
Right.
things you add in, and the logistics of that. So we're probably going to take December and early part of January to go ahead and order the proofs for, I think, we got something like 15 books in the hopper, for
Oh
2023.
wow.
And
That's awesome.
so what we want to do is get those all ordered, have the physical proofs in hand before we even launch a Kickstarter, not just for the actual proofs, but all the stretch goals and incentives and things like that. Because we do it
Right.
in a way that a lot of the stretch goals that are part of Kickstarter are also things that we have on hand for conventions. Because one of the cool things I love, like especially with variant covers that we have like limited numbers of, I ran into a guy at Baltimore Comic-Con that he's backed all our Kickstarters, and he showed up to our table and I was like, I got some shit for you, dude. And I went and I grabbed like all
Oh
this
wow.
stuff, that was like, because one, I'm just so blown away that somebody would buy that many of our comic books, and then you want to like
Yeah.
reward them, right, for being,
Oh,
and he's like, all this
definitely.
stuff free, and I was like, fuck yeah, for you, absolutely, man. like I'm
That's
at this
awesome.
table because of people like you,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
paid for this table.
That's so cool. Wow. There was something else I was going to ask, and I'll be damned. It sucks getting old. I tell you. Damn, it's gone.
We call it
I'm gonna
CRS,
let it
can't
go.
remember shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jade, you were saying multiple issues, and we're going with the anthology. Once, and you said to be determined. Are you planning on maybe once you get all these together, doing like a collection or anything like that after you get all your different stories out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be really cool. I'd really love to see everything kind of all together. Right now, I feel like each book, like I grow so much from one book to the next that I'm like, I don't want to see this book with this book because like I fixed all this shit from the next one, and I'm like, let's just do this one. And then by the time I'm on to
I
the
know
next
exactly
one, I'm like, okay,
what you
let's not
mean.
look at that one.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think from a standpoint of just like seeing them all collected, it would be cool. I think I'd cringe just because I like I feel like that progress, right? But I think that'd be really cool to do something like that. I don't know that that's necessarily like on my like to-do list with everything right now.
I got you.
With what I want to kind of put out. Because yeah, kind of like what you were saying earlier, I'm out of necessity teaching myself how to do everything, like from all the graphic design stuff, all the coloring, and I never really wanted to do that stuff. I just wanted to draw in pencil and ink, and then write, and that's it. And then now, like, I ended up taking online classes through the Kubert School because as of COVID, they started really like doing classes online. And so it was, it was something I wanted to do since I was like a little kid, to go to the Kubert school.
yeah.
But my folks wanted me to have like an actual degree and get like a full education, so I went like a different route. But I always had this pipe dream of like going to the Kubert school, so I got to do it online. And as a result, I've like taken all these courses to be able to like help me color. Like I learned coloring from Brian and Christy Miller, who run Hi-Fi Studios. I learned lettering from Taylor Esposito, who does like lettering in all kinds of like sick books. I learned narrative art from Giovanni Valletta, who does who's drawing Red Sonja and does all the John Wick comic books. Mm-hmm. And I like took portfolio creation from Joe Prado, who does all the inks for Green Lantern, and and I took storytelling from Dan DiDio, who was the former editor-in-chief at DC Comics. And it's just like
the fucking man.
It was, so it's, I mean, like, that was really cool. So like I feel like I'm still, my goals for creating comics is just keep assimilating these skills and keep applying them to stuff. Like I know on this book that Mark and I are working on, I know I want to do everything. Like I want to color it, I want to letter it, I want to do all the shit, because I want to see what. Like, number one, I just want to give myself that challenge of like I want to do it all.
Exactly.
and have it happen.
You want to find your limits. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. Respect, man. Hell yeah.
It's so crazy too to see. So as a I tell artists this a lot. So as a consumer, so Lesser Known Comics number 1, 5, and 7 were all done by Andrea Pescosolido, and you can see, like, he was always a competent artist from the beginning, but like when you make comics that much, like the jump between books, it's just astronomical. And as a consumer, it's actually really cool to see that. So when you compile something that is your work and they can see that, it's almost like when you see the early episodes of The Simpsons, it doesn't really bother you that the art's different, just like it's almost very, it's like interesting.
You get to watch them develop and grow. It's right there in front of you. Yeah.
And I find myself in this position where I feel like I'm constantly, because I'm running Lesser Known Comics, but I'm also a creator within it, so I wear two hats. And I'm like in a constant race to try and feel like I belong, like in the team, right? Like I feel like the coach's kid, right? The coach's kid, like, do they get playing time because they're good enough, or because they're just the coach's kid, and I had, one troll actually say something that was like, stupid, that was just like, oh, blah, 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 like, Mark doesn't have any talent, yada, yada. And it's like, that's where I want to be. Like, you want to be on a team where you feel like you got to try and keep up with everyone. If you're on a team and you feel like everyone to the left and right of you is not as good as you, you're on the wrong team. Like you want to be surrounded by people you're just like, fuck, how did they do that? That is, like,
how did I get mixed up with these guys? Yeah.
Yeah. Because
I think that's like how I felt when I saw David's book like come through the pipeline for Lesser Known. I was like, holy shit, this book looks so fucking good. And I'm just like looking at my little werewolf, like driving a hot rod. I'm like, God damn it, he's got this like epic like Korean vampire story. And I'm like, this is so sick. And so now I'm like, all right, I gotta step it up a notch. I gotta crank out some kick-ass shit to like compete or feel like I belong, or you know what I mean.
That's funny. I hear the like conversations. I think I get it the most, because I don't know how much the creators talk to each other, but they're always telling me, they're like, holy shit, did you see, Jade's new thing, or David's new thing, or Ray's new thing? And I'm always like, you should tell them how cool you think it looks.
Yeah.
Because they're telling me, like, oh shit, have you seen, like everyone's kind of got
Right.
a little taste of that imposter syndrome where they're looking at everyone on the left or right being like,
Mhm.
oh man, like, how am
Exactly.
I making comics next to these people?
Right.
Totally.
Me and the guys do that all the time. And it's, it's we lift each other up. They'll do something, and I'm like, shit. Now I gotta do better. I fucking suck. I mean, they just did this awesome ass thing, and it's not a competition, but at the end of the day, you're still trying to one up each other, and it I don't know what the word is for you. I mean, you're elevating each other, and it's just we're all growing together, and it's fun to watch. You can go back and look at some of like my first book to my third book, and then like Chris at Homebrewed, you can look at his first book to his newest book, and I mean, it's amazing to see, just that development over that short period of time. But we're constantly grinding it out, trying to one up each other, so to speak. And it's not even really one upping each other. It's just we're elevating each other because we
Mhm.
see what the other one's doing. And like, man, I gotta step my game up. I am not gonna be that guy, I gotta elevate it. And
Mhm.
it brings on it's a healthy competition, I guess is the best way of saying
Yeah, and I think the only and I've only had a few instances, where I've run into this, and no one that's making books with us, um, but I've run into people who they want to tell you how fucking rad their book is,
it.
and
Fuck that.
and
Yeah.
it's like, it's just like, eh, you know, just show up and make dope comics and
Right.
support the people to the left and right of you. Like the rest,
Exactly.
the rest is noise. The rest is just noise.
Exactly.
Um, it's almost easier for me to promote somebody else's book, right? Because I get on there. I'm like, dude, I just got this new book. Blah blah blah. It's the coolest fucking thing in the world, right? Because like,
Right.
I sound like a fucking idiot if I say that about myself, right? I'm just like, hey, I made this book and it's gonna blow your
Yeah,
shit out of
you
the water,
don't no
you know.
nobody wants to be that guy. I mean,
No,
there's a lot of those guys out there though. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, I did this and I did that." Who gives a shit?
yeah,
Everybody can do that. Just
Mhm.
I'm trying to elevate everybody else. My book will do whatever it's going to do. That's the way I look at it. I put it out there and I just let the work speak for itself. Fuck all the
yeah,
noise. One of the guys was kind of down the other day, and that's basically what I told him. I said, "Look, man, you you go out there and you draw what makes you happy. It doesn't give a it doesn't mean shit what everybody else is hollering at you. You do what makes you happy. The rest is just fucking noise. You know, plain and simple." And it's just
Mhm.
like Jade, you were talking a while ago. You wanting to tell a story, and yeah, it's different, and that's what's fucking cool about it because people are tired of the same old shit. That's why they're leaving Marvel and DC in droves and coming over to Kickstarter and Indiegogo and checking out our books because they're tired of all that stale ass shit. You know,
Mhm.
so keep doing you. That's what I try to tell everybody. Fuck the noise because there's a lot of haters out there. There's a lot of people out there. They're out to knock everybody else down because they think that's lifting them up. And I've never understood that. I
Yeah.
never have, and I never will.
yeah. I have to think like, it's that same thing, where if someone robs you, right? Someone breaks into your car and steals it. You're pissed, right? Because somebody
Yeah.
broke your window and stole. But you wouldn't trade positions with them in a in
No.
it, ever, right? Because like
Right.
that's a miserable place to be,
Exactly.
and and it's fine, right? You replace that window and you replace what's in there. It's
Mhm.
fine. You'll move on with your day, but that person's living that life day in and day out, where the best they can do is break shit,
Right.
or throw stones at people. And that's, you end up feeling bad for them at a certain point, because they're going to have a wake
Yeah.
up call to snap out of that.
And you know it's coming. Exactly.
Mhm.
It's not if it's coming, it's when it's coming.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I want y'all to be sure and send me all your links when we get through with this thing, because I wanna put everything in the description, because like I said, I love what you're doing, Mark. I love lesser known. You getting these guys out there, and you're elevating indie, man. You're doing a wonderful thing with your company, and it's awesome. I love everything about it, dude. And I really appreciate you coming on tonight, and me actually
Thanks, man.
getting the opportunity to talk with you finally. After all these times we kind of sputtered around each other, we actually made it happen tonight. And Jade, I love what you're doing, man. I love your work, and I can't wait for this Kickstarter. And like I said, send me your links, both of you, and I'm gonna put everything in here. Everybody in chat and everybody that catches this thing when you catch it, I want you to go and I want you to check out everything that Mark's doing and get all these books. And I want you to check out It's a Horror Story, The Date by Jade Louder. It's coming to Kickstarter November 8th. And you don't have to wait till the November, people. You can get on right now. You go to his Instagram, or you go over. I'm sure Mark's already got the link up at Lesser Known too. You can go to either one of those places or go straight to Kickstarter itself. You got a pre-launch page, and numbers matter. Kickstarter has an algorithm, so the more followers he has, the better opportunity he has of this thing getting seen as soon as it launches. So sign up now. Don't wait till November 8th. Sign up right now. Tell your friends to sign up. Tell everybody to sign up. And let's get this thing backed. Let's get it over backed. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Yes, they want to be backed, but the more money that goes into this thing, over being backed, that's more cool shit that they can give you guys with stretch goals. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that, but they're getting there. They're getting there. The more money it makes, the more cool shit you get. So spread the word. Let's get this thing backed. Okay. So I'm gonna jump
Awesome.
off the box.
Thank you so much, Jerry. It was awesome, man, meeting you finally and getting to chat with you.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
I hope we
It was
get to
awesome.
it was awesome to talk with you guys, and I hope we get to do it again. I really enjoyed it, fellas. Thanks for being on. And if you want to hang around after we end this thing and just shoot the shit a minute, I'm wide open, dude. But anyway, y'all in the chat, thanks for hanging out with us. And hey, y'all had a lot of shit going on, but I was focused on these guys. But looks like y'all got happy with each other, so I appreciate that. And appreciate everybody's support, the continued support. Just trying to grow this thing out. Thank you guys, and y'all have a blessed night. Thanks for taking your time to listen to my grumpy old ass. And anyway, I'm gonna close it out right there, fellas. Really enjoyed the talk. Can't wait for the book. Love what you guys are doing. Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
man.
Thanks.